A new report out today is raising big questions about Bulger's alleged role as an informant.
The name used for individuals who break the code of silence is a snitch, rat, informer, narc, 12, or fed.
He wanted to claim immunity at his trial, which he says an FBI agent granted to him. Well, that claim prompted the FBI to start tracking the number of crimes its informants commit. And thanks to a USA Today report, we now know that number was 5,600 in 2011 alone.
Even though an informant may aid law enforcement in your arrest, one must remember this is still a criminal and might in fact still be operating in the underworld undetected.
The Whitey Bulger case has given the public a peek inside the secret world of the FBI and its criminal informants. Now, a newly released report uncovered by USA Today says in just 1 year, the FBI gave informants permission to break the law more than 5,600 times. Commercial relationship summed up in 3 words by an FBI spokesperson: situational, tightly controlled.
When you're engaged with an individual who orchestrates illegal activities from both sides of the law, you cannot win that battle. It's evident despite going rogue, this individual may still gain legal immunity when the war is done. This leaves limitless possibilities for their offense and defensive positions. They say the ones with the cash wins the war. An informant can simultaneously be funded by the feds as well as their criminal enterprise. They say those who have the most weapons are in power. An informant may be granted leniency to stockpile resources. In this segment of Eat the Snakes, Informants Gone Rogue, we will be reviewing James Whitey Bulger. James Whitey Bulger is the real-life crime boss, portrayed by Johnny Depp in the movie Black Mass and Jack Nicholson in The Departed. Bulger, the product of 2 Irish parents, was born on September 3, 1929, in the neighborhood of Dorchester, Massachusetts. Bulger's father, James Joseph Bulger Sr., lost his arm in an industrial accident and the family was struck with a life of poverty. The Bulgers would later move into the Mary Ellen McCormick housing projects located in the neighborhood of South Boston. There, Bulger would embark on a life of crime that would later leave pain and bloodshed all over the South Boston streets. The notorious Irish crime boss known today as Whitey started off as a petty thief and would eventually graduate to larceny, assault, forgery, and armed robbery, which earned him a cot at a juvenile reformatory at the age of 14. He gets out and joins the United States Air Force, but it's short-lived. After several assaults and going AWOL, he finds himself in a military prison. He receives an honorable discharge and gets bussed back to Massachusetts. The realm of criminality was his playground. After his release from military prison, he goes back to a life of crime and gets jammed up for armed robbery and truck hijacking. In efforts to set an example, the judge sends Whitey straight to the Atlanta Federal Penitentiary, where Bulger claimed to be a guinea pig for a CIA-sponsored MKUltra program where the inmates were told they were being given an experimental treatment for schizophrenia.
LSD was isolated by Stoll and Hoffman in a Sandoz pharmaceutical company of Basel, Switzerland. When in 1943 Hoffman became temporarily psychotic through accidental ingestion of the drug, the door swung wide open for research into the nature of the schizophrenic process and, in a larger sense, into the biochemistry of psychosis. TV's Paul Coates of Confidential File undertook to film a model psychosis in our laboratory in an attempt to impress upon the public, through a case of artificial insanity, that the mentally ill is not inhabited by the devil. Many of the changes produced by this drug have to be described verbally. And here we have the advantage of an artist who is able to draw a sketch, and you can see all the changes just here. Now you're getting emotional again. Now look at the picture now. Look at the picture. Look at it. And just concentrate on the eyebrows. That's where you were. Just look at it. Come on, now concentrate on it. Do you have the feeling of reality when you look at this paper and you hold the pencil in your hand?
No. Yes and no. I don't.
Yes and no is correct. All right, now let's. Just about right. Bill, suppose you take a look at these 2 pictures compare them, and let's see if you have any comments.
Not very finished.
Do you see any big difference?
Not really.
No real big difference.
The eyes, for example, are the same.
Well, I think it's time for you to have your lysergic acid. Drink this down, and we'll be back after a while and see how you're doing.
This is a glass of water, colorless, tasteless. It contains 100 gamma of LSD-25, 1/10 of a milligram, the equivalent of 1/600th of a grain. An ounce of this material will make 150,000 such doses.
Oh, it's just like you're released or you're free or... I don't know how I can tell you. It's a spider web. Can you see it? It's right here in front of me, right now. Watch. No. Oh, good heavens. You know, it went through me. It passed right through me.
Could you feel it?
Me?
Declassified documents would later confirm Bulger's allegations. Bulger and 18 other inmates volunteered to take the new drug for a reduced sentence. That drug would later turn out to be LSD and other drugs over an 18-month period. Bulger described his experience as taking him to the depths of insanity. Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary, Leavenworth Federal Penitentiary, and, in 1963, to Lewisburg Federal Penitentiary. After 9 years in multiple correctional facilities, Bulger is finally granted parole. The year is 1966. Bulger is released and gets a side hustle through his mentor, Billy O'Sullivan, who sets Bulger up with a gig working the books and loan sharking for the notorious Killeen Gang. The Killeen Gang is run by 3 key players, all brothers, Donnie, Kenny, and Eddie Killeen. Little does Bulger know, he was headed down the path of one of the bloodiest gang wars in Boston history. Kenny Killeen gets into an altercation with Michael Mickey Dwyer outside the Transit Cafe. Michael Mickey Dwyer, a member of the rival Mullen Gang, is shot, and the response is multiple gangland-style killings throughout Boston. The Killeens are outgunned and continuously outwitted by a younger Mullins gang. They start getting desperate. Bulger plots his first hit, his target, Paul McGonigal of the Mullen Gang. The hit goes south, and Bulger allegedly kills McGonigal's brother Donald with a bullet to the head. It's a case of mistaken identity. Things are hot, and revenge is brewing. Bulger panics and rushes to Billy O'Sullivan's house to plot his next move. Bulger successfully avoids retaliation, but Billy O'Sullivan gets ambushed and gunned down. His killers assumed he was the one responsible for the death of Donald McGonigal. Bulger is running out of options and realizes he's on the losing side. In a snake move, it's alleged he held a secret meeting with Howie Winter, the leader of the Winter Hill Gang, and offers to take out his boss, Donald Killeen, crippling the Killeen Gang leadership and possibly ending the street war. On May 13, 1972, Donald Killeen is gunned down outside his home in Framingham while he was on his way to get his son a birthday present. It is disputed whether Bulger had any involvement with the death of Donald Killeen. Nonetheless, Bulger and the remaining Killeens go on the lam, fearing they would be next. Howie Winter and Joseph Russo, a cap regime of the Italian Patriarcha crime family of Rhode Island, holds a meeting to resolve the dispute between the two gangs at Chandler's nightclub in Boston's South. The Mullins were represented by Patrick Ney and Thomas King, and the Killeens by Bulger. It works. In a unanimous decision, they join forces and appoint Winter as head of the new family. It's 1972. Bulger is shaking down bookkeepers and local narcotics dealers in the South Boston streets. He's approached by FBI Special Agent John Connolly, who makes his first attempt to turn Bulger into a confidential informant to gain inside information on the Patriarcha crime family. He fails. 1972, Bulger partners with Stephen Flemmi, not knowing that Flemmi, an Italian gangster now Irish crime family enforcer, was really an FBI informant since 1965. Bulger turns soon after and carries out a string of murders, assaults, and extortion of local criminals in South Boston. He now believes if he cooperates with the FBI, his acts of violence would be sanctioned, and the FBI will look the other way. It's alleged Connolly propositioned Bulger by making a deal to help in Bulger's feud with Patriarca underboss Gennaro Angiulo. Alright, if they want to play checkers, we'll play chess. Him, says Bulger during recruitment. In 1975, Tommy King, an enforcer for Whitey Bulger's Winter Hill gang, is shot in the back of the head for attempting to assassinate a Boston police officer without Bulger's blessing. In 1979, Winter is arrested, along with many members of his inner circle, on charges of fixing horse races. It's alleged that Bulger and Flemmi would submit information on their fellow gang members and even submit false information in some instances. Bulger and Flemmi were coincidentally left out of the indictments. They step into power and take over the leadership of the Winter Hill gang, transferring its headquarters to the Lancaster Street garage in Boston's West End, near the Boston Garden. In 1980, Bulger kills Louis Lidiff, a Lebanese-American neighborhood bookmaker who had been stealing money from his partners in the bookmaking operation and using the money to traffic cocaine. Louis was Bulger's top earner, but after stealing money and refusing to give Bulger his cut, Louis found himself stuffed into a garbage bag in the trunk of his car, which had been dumped in the South End. He had been stabbed with an ice pick, shot and stuffed in a green garbage bag. In 1981, Bulger strangles Stephen Flemmi's girlfriend to death after they lure her into an abandoned house. They feared Deborah knew too much about the inner workings of their organization and had knowledge of their cooperation with the FBI. Deborah Davis, 26 years old, walked through the doorway of the house. Bulger grabbed her by her neck and choked the life out of her as he dragged her down the stairs leading to the basement. Flemmi would later testify in open court. Flemmi also testified that he himself wrapped Deborah Davis's body in a tarp, and when it got dark, he and Bulger went to the Neponset River with the corpse and shovels. Bulger watched as Flemmi dug the hole. In 1982, a South Boston cocaine dealer named Edward Brian Halloran, known on the streets as Balloon Head, approached the FBI and stated that he had witnessed Bulger and Flemmi murdering Louis Lidiff. FBI Special Agent John Connolly immediately relays the message to Bulger and Flemmi about this pending problem that needed to be dealt with. He closely briefs them on what Halloran was saying, specifically his claims to having participated in the Tulsa murder of businessman Roger Wheeler. Connolly reported that Halloran was looking for him and his family to be placed in the Witness Protection Program. It doesn't happen, and on May 11th, 1982, Bulger, Flemmi, and Weeks were tipped off that Halloran returned to Boston and was dining at Anthony's Pier 4 restaurant. Michael Donahue, a friend of Halloran's from Dorchester, unknowingly ran into Edward at the restaurant in a decision that would prove costly to him. Donahue offered Halloran a ride home. Bulger and another assailant drove up with a silenced MAC-10. Bulger, carrying a .30 carbine, opens fire, riddling Halloran and Donahue's car with bullets. Donahue was shot in the head and killed instantly. Halloran lived long enough to identify his attacker as Bulger associate James Flynn. Fast forward to 1988, Bulger's status as an FBI informant is revealed publicly when a Globe Spotlight team, led by journalist Gerard O'Neill, in a published story detailing his work with the Bureau while still actively committing crimes. This is when things start to go south for the notorious Boston crime boss. In 1995, Bulger and Flemmi were indicted on racketeering charges. During the discovery phase, a tape from a roving bug reveals two federal agents who were listening in on the bug mention that they should have told their informant to give a list of questions to the otherwise guys. Bulger's co-defendant's lawyer learned about this and realized that the FBI had lied about the basis for the bug to protect an informant. Suspecting that this was not the first time this had happened, the defense attorney sought to force prosecutors to reveal the identities of any informants used in connection with the case. Federal judge grants the motion, and on May 22, 1997, the head of the Organized Crime and Racketeering section of the Department of Justice gave a sworn statement admitting that Bulger had been an FBI informant. He also stated that since Bulger was accused of leading a criminal enterprise while working as an informant and was also now a fugitive, he had forfeited any reasonable expectation that his identity would be protected. Bulger is on the lam for more than 16 years, 12 of those years on the FBI 10 Most Wanted Fugitives list. He is finally arrested in Santa Monica, California on June 22, 2011 at 81 years old. A reward of $2 million and a tip from former model, actress, and Miss Iceland 1974, Anna Bjornsdottir, would be the final nail in his coffin. Bulger was charged with murder, conspiracy to commit murder, extortion, narcotics distribution, and money laundering. Agents found more than $800,000 in cash, 30 firearms, and fake IDs at the apartment. Bulger is brought back to Boston for arraignment in federal court on July 6, 2011. He pleaded not guilty to 48 charges, including 19 counts of murder, extortion, money laundering, obstruction of justice, perjury, narcotics distribution, and weapons violations. The once feared and deadly crime boss is transferred from the Federal Transfer Center in Oklahoma City to United States Penitentiary, Hazleton, in West Virginia, and afterwards, a pine box. On October 30th, 2018, the 89-year-old Bulger was found dead. Bulger was in a wheelchair and had been beaten to death by multiple inmates armed with a sock-wrapped padlock and a shiv. His eyes had nearly been gouged out and his tongue almost cut off. Whitey was blacked out.